right, well, let's find out what are the two square roots of -2 square root 3 plus 2i. Now, we have a formula down here that allows us to find the roots of a number, of a complex number, but it needs to be written in trigonometric form before we can do that. Okay, so remember we need two things. In trigonometric form, it's written as r cosine theta plus I sine theta. For this value, we need to find theta and we need to find r, so we can write it in this form, and then we will be able to find its roots. The first thing I always like to do is graph where this number is located on the plane. Now, when you're graphing a complex number, this value here is your x, and the number with your I is the y. So we have -2 times the square root of 3. Which is about -3.4. And then our y is 2, so -3.4 and then up 2. And why that is important is because it lets us know what quadrant we're in, so that when we find our theta, we know where our terminal side should lie. All right, so next we're going to find our r. R is equal to the square root of x squared plus y squared. Again, this is our x value, this is our y value. So we have the square root of -2 root 3 squared plus 2 squared. Now if you take 2 times the square root of 3 and you square it, you get 12. So we have the square root of 12 plus 2 squared is 4. 12 plus 4 is 16, and the square root of 16 is 4. So our r for our trig form is 4. So we have a 4 here.
5.
We still need to find our theta. We have cosine of something plus I sine of that same something. Okay. The way we find that is by using the fact that the tangent of theta in this scenario is equal to y over x. We put in our y and our x value. That gives us that the tangent of theta is equal to 2 over -2 root 3. We take the inverse tangent of both sides so that we can find our theta. Now this might not be our actual theta. It'll be the angle in the domain of tangent, of inverse tangent. Okay, so let's try that. The inverse tangent of 2 divided by -2 root 3. It gives us theta is -30 degrees, which would place it down here. Okay, but remember we were up here in the second quadrant, so we want that similar angle, but over here in the second quadrant, so we want the angle that's 30 degrees away from the x-axis in this quadrant, which if we take the 180 degrees minus 30, we find our angle is 150 degrees. Okay, so that is our theta. So in trigonometric form, this number we had is 4 times the cosine of 150 degrees plus I times the sine of 150 degrees. Now we can use our formula to find the nth root of a complex number. You do r to the 1 over n. Now n is the root you're doing. In this case, we're doing a square root, which is a 2. So our n's will be 2's. Okay. K, here we have our angles. We're going to do cosine of theta plus 360 times k. K changes depending on which root you're finding. So there are 2 roots. Since we're doing square roots, there's 2. A first one, and we'll do a second one. You always start with k being 0. For the first one, we'll have k be 0, and the next one, you go up 1 each time. So our next one, k will be 1. We use our numbers here. So our r was 4, and we take it to the 1/2 power, since we're doing square roots, times the cosine of, our angle was 150 degrees, plus 360k. Remember, for our first one, our k is 0. So 360 times 0, and then we divide by 2. Plus I sine of that same thing, 150 plus 360 times 0, all over 2. Well, 360 times 0 is just 0, plus 150 give me 150, and then we're supposed to divide by 2. So we get the square root of 4 is 2 cosine 75 degrees plus I sine 75 degrees. Now, if this were an angle we knew the exact value for, we would go ahead and find the exact values, but it's not one of them. We could find it by doing some work, but since it's not, we'll just leave it as 2 cosine 75 plus I 75. Okay, now let's find the second root. So we start with the same thing, 4 to the 1/2 power. That does not change. Cosine of our original angle of 150 plus 360 times, this time we're using 1 for our k, divided by 2, and then plus I sine of the same thing. Okay, so let's find what angle we're working with. 360 times 1 is 360, plus 150 is 510, and then we divide by 2, giving us 255. So here, 4 to the 1/2 power, that means the square root of 4 is 2, times the cosine of our angle we just found was 255 degrees, plus I sine of, we would end up the same angle there, 255. Okay, so that's our value. We could use a calculator to go ahead and distribute the two and calculate each of those. But for now, we're just going to leave that. 2 cosine 75 degrees plus I 75 degrees, and 2 times